So in our last lesson where we solved triangles, we found out that you could solve any right-angled triangle, but you need two pieces of information to do that. You either need two sides. So if I have 5 and 10, then I can do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I could get this. I could use SOHCAHTOA and find both angles. So if I have two sides, I'm going to be able to solve it. If I have an angle and one side, then for sure I could find the other angle, and then I could use SOHCAHTOA to find the sides. But basically, you need two pieces of information to solve a triangle, other than the 90 degree. The 90 degree is a must, because you can't solve any triangles yet that aren't 90 degree triangles. And our trigonometry for grade 10 involves only 90 degree triangles, or you have to make a 90 degree triangle like we did with the isosceles one. The only place where two pieces of information is not enough is if I just give you two angles. Because if I just give you two angles, I could just make it a little bit bigger. The angles would stay the same, but the sides would change. So if you have two pieces of information, and that includes at least one side, you're going to be able to solve the entire triangle. Now, when we get these questions with two right triangles, usually what happens is they ask us to find something, find the length of xy. I'm going to put a green box around that, and draw xy with a green line. Do you see that that's part of this right angled triangle? Do you know that if this is 90 degrees, this other side would be 90 degrees as well? Did you know that angles in a straight line always add up to 180? So you're like, perfect, I want to find this green line, and that green line is part of a right angled triangle. But when I look at that right angled triangle on its own, so I'm going to redraw the right angled triangle. Here was x, here was w, here was y, like this. Oh, draw this line in green again. And I know this is 22 degrees. We need two pieces of information to solve a triangle. I can't find that green side because I only know 22 degrees. Can you see that right now? We can't solve for that green line on that triangle because in order to solve everything on the triangle, including the green line, we need one side and one angle, or two sides. But we need two pieces of information with at least one side. And we only have, besides the 90 degrees, the 22 degree angle. But there's a second right angled triangle. If I look at the second right angled triangle, and I'm going to redraw it underneath here, and sometimes it's helpful for you to redraw them. Top is y. In this one, I know 20 degrees, and I know 8.4. So I know two pieces of information. I could, if I wanted to, solve the entire triangle. But I look at you guys, and you guys look pretty smart. If you don't have to do extra work, would you like to do it? Probably not, right? It's not like at home when your parents say, hey, could you wash the dishes? You say, sure, could I also wash the floor? Have you ever said that? No. That'd be insane. Why would I want to do extra work? Right? So I could solve for all of this, but there's only one thing that really helps me with this triangle, because I want to find that green line in the end. But I also don't want to do extra work. Can you see on the green triangle, and I'm going to draw it in purple, that this line right here is on both my triangle with the green that I want to find, and on my triangle where I can find everything. Does that make sense? So when I go to find, if I'm like finding everything on here, no, I think this is the best thing to find first. If I find this first, then I could put that number also here, and then I have two pieces of information on that triangle, and then I could find the green line in the end. Okay? If you don't know what would help you, you might solve everything. But step one in this question is to look for your two triangles, maybe draw them separately, but then look for something that they share or something that would help you find from one triangle to the other triangle. And in this case, they share this purple line. So the first thing I'm going to find is that purple line, and I'm going to choose a variable for that. Okay, I'm just going to pick X for now. You could pick any letter you want. Eventually we want to find the green line, and I could have used a little z for opposite of here too. That would have been fine. You can choose any variable you want. But X usually is this thing, when you don't know something, is the first letter someone picks when they're trying to find something. For angles, we tend to pick theta. So now I look at this triangle and I say, can I solve for this? Yes. I could use SOHCAHTOA. Should I use sine, should I use cos, or should I use tangent? I want to find the opposite of 20. And you can always label your hypotenuse. I know my hypotenuse is 8.4. So opposite and hypotenuse, when I look at SOHCAHTOA, this tells me I should use sine. So I write out my definition of sine. Sine of 20 degrees would be the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. X is already in my numerator, so to get x by itself, I would have to multiply both sides by 8.4. You can use a dot in between for multiplying, an x, an asterisk, and even with sine, you can just write it touching up against each other. So even when I write it in my, if I go 8.4 sine, the calculator already knows that they're touching, you mean multiplication. And I get 2.873. Again, I'm going to put dot, dot, dot because I don't want to round through. But I do know now that this, on this triangle, is 2.873. Right. We used the letter X already. Isabella, pick a letter for the green side. H. And it doesn't matter what letter you choose. So, if we pick H there, now we want to solve for H. I can now have two pieces of information with one side. I can use SOHCAHTOA. If I want to find H, H is the hypotenuse, so I know it's either sine or cosine. If I use the 22 degrees, this 2.83 is the adjacent side. So it tells me I need to write my cos definition. Cos of 22 degrees is my 2.873 dot 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 divided by H. This time your H is in your denominator. Again, I'm okay if you go right to this. But if you need to first multiply both sides by H, and then divide both sides by cos 22. Again, only use the shortcut if you understand what's happening. If you're using a shortcut because you've memorized it, I will tell you that that will be disastrous for you in the future. You're going to get to something in grade 11 and be like, I'm totally lost. And I'll be like, you have to relearn all of grade 10 math before you can do this in grade 11. That's going to hurt you. So, make sure that you're understanding the steps as you go along. And now at this time, we can go to our calculator. I can go to my fraction button. My calculator lets me take an answer that I use by going second answer. Your calculator, if you just hit the divide sign right away, would probably have your answer and divide it. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. If I cleared everything out and I just hit the divide button, my answer automatically shows up. Which is nice because then you're not rounding early. So I'm going to take that answer and I'm going to divide it by cos of 22. Push enter, 3.0985. Does it say what to round to? Nearest 10th. Do we have units? Yes. There's centimeters. Put a box around the final answer. And we get 3.1 centimeters. So our questions with two right triangles are sort of like two singular questions with a little bit of problem solving. The problem solving is we had to discover that the purple side of the one triangle was the least amount of work. I could have found the bottom of this triangle. I could have said this angle is 70 degrees. Right? That's not hard to label that side. But the only thing that was helpful for the triangle with the green line was this purple line. So with questions with two right triangles. Oh, did I draw a picture on yours or is there no picture drawn? So these are the hardest ones where you have to draw your own picture. Definitely. Wonder if we have another, oh my goodness, I'm just getting to draw. Should we do the easier one first and then come back to the drawing ones? Or do you like going in order? Does it bother you if we go out of order? Let's do the easier one first. If the picture's drawn, it's easier. Step one, can you see two right angle triangles? Yes. Not bad to draw them separately. There's one, and I know 26 degrees. This is B, C, and D. And then there was the other one, 9 degrees there, 4.2 centimeters. This is A, D, and B, and 47 degrees. Can you see on the triangle on the left, you have two pieces of information. You could figure out everything on that triangle if you wanted to. What do we want to find? I'll highlight it in green. Find C to D, which is this side right here. That's what we want to find. Do we have enough information on that triangle? No. Is there something on the first triangle that would help you solve the second triangle? Yes. That is that they share this purple side. So if I can find that purple side, then I have two pieces of information on the triangle with the green side, and then I can solve it. And that would be the least amount of work possible. So, starting with the purple side, Isabella picked last. Jeremy, pick a letter. What do you want to call this side? X. We're going to call that side X. SOHCAHTOA. Can you see that you could use SOHCAHTOA? I want to find the X is the hypotenuse. So I have to use either sine or cosine. If I'm using the 47, I know the opposite side. So that means I'm going to set this up with my sine definition. Sine of 47 degrees is the opposite side, which is 4.2, over the hypotenuse, which we chose the letter x. And then, again, if it makes sense to you, goes right to this step. Since the x is in the denominator, you'd have to multiply both sides by x to get rid of it out of the denominator. Then divide both sides by sine of 47. Type this into our calculator. 4.2. Divide by sine of 47. And each of these times we type something into the calculator, you should have your calculator handy and be checking. Do I know how to use my calculator? Because that's what you're going to get familiar with, so that when you get to a test or a quiz, you've already done this a bunch of times. And I just put ... saying I am keeping as many decimal places as possible. But now I know this side is 5.74. And on that triangle, now I have two pieces of information. I want to find this side, someone in the middle. Sonia, what letter do you want to use for that side? T. When I use T, I always curl it so it doesn't look like a plus sign. Because sometimes when you use T, and you use T a lot in science, because T stands for tie. But sometimes we make our T's and they end up looking like plus signs, and then your math goes all over the place. I'll be careful. So I'll make my T's a little bit fancy like that. And SOHCAHTOA, I know the hypotenuse, so I know I have to use sine or cosine. With the 26, the T is the adjacent side. So cos of 26 degrees equals adjacent side T over 5.74. Remind myself that I'm going to use all of those decimal places. So to get T by itself, I multiply both sides by 5.74. And again, on most calculators, if you have the 5.74, and now you just want to multiply, if I hit the multiply button, it automatically takes that answer from before, and I can now multiply it by cos of, what was it? 26. 5.162. How many decimal places do we want? To the nearest 10th. Square around your final answer. And we solved it. The most challenging questions are always ones where you have to read something and draw a picture. And the best way to find out if you're good or bad at this is to try. So before I draw the picture, I want you to read. I want you to draw some buildings. And I want to see, we want to make triangles, so when you draw things, you're sort of looking from the side, and see if you can make a couple of right angle triangles and draw this situation. All right, let's check how your drawing went. So there's two apartment buildings. I'm going to start by drawing them both. Here's one, here's another one. I don't know if one's taller or not. I just drew two of them. From a window, so I'm going to draw a window right here. There's my window. The angle of elevation to the top of an apartment block from a window is 28 degrees. So angle of elevation always involves a horizontal line. So I'll draw a horizontal line. Angle of elevation to the top of the other building, this is where the 28 degrees would be. The angle of depression to the bottom is 34. So now I go to the bottom. Angle of depression is from a horizontal line down. This would be 34 degrees. These are not leaning towers of Pisa, so we can assume the building is straight up and down. There's our 90-degree angle. Can you see that we have two right-angled triangles? We could draw them separately. I have one triangle here with 28 degrees and a right angle. I have the other triangle here with 34 degrees. The window is 24 feet off the ground. So I know that this height here, let's go like this, is 24 feet. Does it make sense then that I can label this also as 24? Because if it's 24 up to the window and this is a straight line across, it'd be 24 down to the bottom on the other side. What do I want to find? I want to find the entire height of the apartment block. So here is the apartment block. I'm going to use H for height, seems like a good letter. I want to find that entire height. What do I need? If I said, I'm allowed to tell you one thing you don't know on here, other than the height. What is the one thing you would ask for to find the height? So if I said, I know all the numbers of everything on here, you want to find the height, that I'm not allowed to tell you. But I can tell you anything else on any of these triangles. Can you see that you would probably want to know this blue line? If I told you that, it would be really easy just to add it to the 24 and you'd find the whole height. This is how we problem solve. We first ask, what are we trying to find? And then we ask, what is the most useful thing that would help me with that? And that's this blue line. So that's right here. That's the most useful thing. If that's the most useful thing, then we look at that triangle, can I find it? And unfortunately, no, because we don't have a side. We need a side and an angle or two sides. And I only have an angle. But I look at my other triangle, and the other triangle has an angle and a side, so I could solve that whole thing. What's going to be the most helpful to find the blue line? The most helpful is this purple line, because they share it. That's the line right there. So I pick a letter. All right, I pick from this side. Now I'm going to go far side. Lennon, pick a letter for the purple side. T. T. Here we go, T again. You like my fancy T's. So now I go to this. If this is my T, I can say, oh, I can use SOHCAHTOA. This is my hypotenuse. I know the opposite side. I want to find the adjacent side. So tan of 34 degrees, I'll write out my definition, is going to be opposite side, which is 24, over the adjacent side, which is T. T is in your denominator, so we have to multiply both sides by T and then divide by tan of 34 to get T by itself. type it in my calculator, 35.58. And I'll keep all those decimal places. Because now I know this side here is 35.58. And that's on both of those triangles. So now I can solve for the blue side. This road, Kara, pick the letter for the blue side. So if I choose that letter to be G, now I can solve for that because I have two pieces of information. SOHCAHTOA, I look at my angle, I want to find the opposite side, and I know the adjacent, so I'm going to use tan again. Tan of 28 degrees, opposite is G. Sometimes I put it in brackets when I put the dot, 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 just sort of the number that goes on forever. And so I can get G by itself by multiplying both sides by the 35.58. And again, since I have the 35.58 in my calculator, I can just hit the times button, times it by tan of 28, 18.918. And what does it want me to round to? It doesn't say, does it? If it doesn't say, I like to go to 3 decimal places. I'm going to double check if that 8 is right, or if it needs to be rounded up to a 9. It needs to be rounded up to a 9. My units are feet. Put a box around my funnel. That's it. Yes. Right. That's G. But I have to, that's a really good thing to look back. What did I want to find? I wanted to find H in the end. So now H, which is the total thing, will be the 18.919 plus the 24. So the actual height of the building is and since it's a word problem, we should write a statement. And there it is. We can put a whole box around that statement as well.